We're a week away from the NFL draft. The Colts will be on the clock. They are on the clock as we count down the 26th pick this year in the NFL draft and what Chris Ballard and company are going to do. Welcome back to another Indianapolis Colts podcast. I'm going to go into my final two mock drafts today, and I'm going to show you a little bit different insight to the mock drafts that I do here, and I'm glad you could join me here today. We've got a lot of news this week coming in from the Colts as they return to practice here this week as they're doing their spring training and getting ready for the 2019 campaign. One of the big newses of the week were the dropping of the schedule. We know that that the Indianapolis Colts will play the San Diego Chargers in California on the 8th of September to start out the regular season. Andrew Luck has only won one opening game in his career as a Colt. We've only gone 1-0 one time in the first week. So look for them to really start out the year hot. I think that's going to be important. It's a 4:05 game. It's going to have a lot of merit on it as two AFC teams that went into, we're going into the playoffs a little bit here in the 2018 season, are going to meet. And Phillip Rivers versus Andrew Luck. The Colts have had a hard time against San Diego, I feel like, over the years. As there was that incredible interception by San Diego against Peyton Manning way back in the day, right when he was throwing it to Reggie Wayne. And you remember that, and LaDainian Tomlinson back in his prime. So the Colts have some history against San Diego. We'll hope that the Colts could start 1-0 this season, as they have a tougher year, I think, ahead this season, as more than they did last season. And they're going to play some playoff teams this year that maybe you didn't see last year. So it's going to be great to get into that, and I'm looking forward to it. Jumping into this first mock draft, I'm going to look over what I did and on the Draft Network. I went through 3 rounds like I've done before, and really, I think, got some good players, and I'm going to go into why I picked the players. But I'm going to put on the screen my screen recording from earlier today when I did this on my phone, and I'm going to start it right now. So the Colts now have the 26th pick on, and I'm scrolling down, and this is a really good looking board, I think. And you look at what's available here, you could go a lot of different ways. Your pass rushers and your line are not really there. So I went ahead and picked Chauncey Gardner-Johnson there at the 26th pick. And I'm going to keep rolling through these, and then I'm going to go back through at the end. So at 26, I did go with the defensive back, and I think, there's a question as to why there, looking at who was there and who was available. This time there is Clelin Ferrell available, and I'm going to go ahead and pick him there, as he is a really great looking edge from Clemson that I think has been kind of overlooked here recently, as he had a great 2018 campaign with Clemson. At the 59th pick here, I think this one's kind of a no-brainer for you. I'm going to look here, and I'm going to look at my picks. And what I've done, I picked up, 2 defensive players here, the safety and the edge, 2 positions I think are really crucial for the Colts. So looking at what's available here, you can kind of look. There's an offensive lineman there. There's, a couple wide receivers, but I really like Paris Campbell, and the Ohio State guy. He's a really versatile wide receiver. So I'm going to go ahead and choose him there at 59th pick. So going into the final round here, this one I had a little bit of an option, and I kind of had an overall theme of what I wanted to follow as I went through these. And now looking at the board, you could go with running back. One can make an argument for tight end. So I didn't really want to go that route. I've looked a lot at Isaiah Johnson because I've seen him a lot here in these mock drafts. And I think the Colts' need for corner is a little bit more than maybe some other fans think. So I think I go ahead and pick Isaiah Johnson here. I'll go into why. He's a kind of a corner in training here, and I think he's going to take a step up into the NFL. And that's all that I had today. And on the first mock draft, and I'm going to show you here, eventually I'll show you my picks. I go through and I was looking at what went where, and eventually I'll go to my picks. And the four that I chose: Gardner-Johnson, Cleveland Farrell, Paris Campbell, and Isaiah Johnson. A pretty good mix there. And going back to my video from Tuesday from the Colts' biggest needs on the team, this follows that same model, I think. So going back and doing and telling you a little bit about why I picked. I've talked about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson before. He's a safety from Florida. He had 71 tackles and 4 interceptions in 2018. And I just really think he's your most complete safety in the draft. I really do. He had saw a lot of different things in his time at Florida and in the SEC. He's built for the NFL, I think. He's 5'11", 210 pounds, had a 4.48 40. So check mark there. And in his final game versus Michigan and their bowl game, he had 2 interceptions and a pick six versus Michigan there as they blew the Wolverines out of the water in his final game. He's just a versatile safety. I think that he can go back and play your coverage for you. He did a lot of different things at Florida. And I also think that he can go up and be a run stopper and kind of play in the box too. And I think that going forward, when you're looking for your next safety of the future, is going to be what you want to put next to Malik Hooker. And I think a lot of Clayton Gathers, and this is why this pick, wouldn't make as much sense if Ballard wanted to bring back Gathers. And, it's obvious that he thinks a lot of him and he has high praise for him. So maybe spending the 26th pick on a safety here wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. And I think for some people, would be like, why would you pick that? Well, look back at it and see what was available. There were, some wide receivers that you could have picked. You could have got that. I don't think that they should really do that. I don't think the Colts should really spend that high on wide receiver, looking at the Colts wide receiver room right now. So I went with the safety. I went with the safety of the future. And I think that Ballard is looking all across the board in all different ways that whatever happens on draft day, he can adapt to what happens. And this next mock draft is, a little bit different. So, this one for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I liked it with the 26th pick. I think he's a great player and probably your best safety in the draft, in my opinion. The 34th pick, Cleveland Farrell. He's an edge from Clemson. I really haven't talked about this guy before, but I really like him. He's 6'4", 265, a pretty good size there on the edge. He was an All-American at Clemson. He played 4-3 at Clemson, so he's going to come right into Eberflus's system, and I think could start right away if he was inevitably drafted. He had great speed off the line, and I thought that looking at his tape, he shedded blocks pretty well, and not necessarily double teams because he spends a lot of time out on the edge, but he can get the edge, I think, a lot off of the tackles, and he'll hit tight ends off the line and kind of slow them down a little bit too, so that maybe your safety or linebacker that's in coverage there have a little bit more time to react. So I think he does a great job there, and he did a great job at Clemson. He had 55 tackles and 11 and a half sacks in 2018. So a high production guy, in my opinion. I think you really look at that. He had 3 forced fumbles last year as well and 27 career sacks. So a guy that, aside from some injuries back in his senior year of high school and freshman year of college, had an ACL injury in senior year, and then he had a hand injury that caused him to redshirt his freshman year. I think that he's your best edge guy that's going to be there. And I don't know necessarily, he might be worth a 26 pick, looking at him. I mean, I think he's a great player and somebody that at Clemson, playing along with Christian Wilkins and Dexter Lawrence, they really were a great system. And playing next to those guys and Christian Wilkins, who I really think highly of. I think that Clelin Ferrell, if you don't get Christian Wilkins at 26, could be a great option for you at edge there to bring into your room of young edge rushers that you've got, and Justin Houston. So if he can come in and learn a little bit from those guys in Houston, that he could be your edge guy of the future. Going on to the 59th pick, this is where I picked Paris Campbell. I've already talked about him. He's got, I really like him. He's 6'1", 208 pounds, 4'3", 40. This dude is moving. He has a 40-inch vertical. I mean, just like a stellar athlete here from Ohio State. And you look at what he did in high school, he was just a stud. He had the state record for the 60-meter dash in high school. He was a sub 10-7 guy in the 100-meter dash. And this guy has just got blazing speed. And really, when you look at him, he was the team captain in 2017, the first team all Big Ten last season for the Buckeyes, and led them in receptions, 90 receptions, 1,063 yards and 12 touchdowns. So this is why I passed on a receiver like your A.J. Brown there at 34th, because I think you can get a great player with Clelin Ferrell, and then you don't have to, right here, Paris Campbell, I think looking at his tape and what he did for Ohio State, he's one of your, better receivers there for you at the 59th pick. So I really like that one. And going into my last pick, the 89th, was Isaiah Johnson from Houston, the corner. And I think that he could, he needs to develop and step into the NFL a little bit, looking at a late third rounder here. He's going to step into a corner room that's already got, your three guys that you really count on. So maybe he can come in and really start to learn and develop under Eberflus's system and join that corner room, who I think still needs some help, who, you have the guys that are coming along, but Isaiah Johnson or, another corner, maybe a little bit later, you can draft somebody else here. I go into another third round option in my second mock draft, but I like this guy. He's got a 4.4 40. He's fast. He keeps his eye on the ball. He was another track athlete in high school, and he's got really long arms, so he makes great plays at the ball. And I think that he had a decent tape. There were some eyebrows at him, but I like the pick here, especially based on what was available for you at the 89th pick there. So that was it for my first mock draft. I hope it shows you, like who is available and why I picked a certain player. I think that knowing that can maybe make a little bit more sense. Like, oh, okay, like Tillery was taken, or, such and such was taken, okay, that's why you went with that pick. So that's really what I wanted to do today and have a little bit more visual. So this one is going to be my second mock draft that I'll put on the screen, and I'm going to go ahead and watch that one. And I thought that this one was a good one too. Probably a great one that would happen. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we'll see. I'm starting it now. And the available players, you look at this, and this is a great draft board. This is something that I think that Chris Ballard would love to see here at the 26. All these players, Tillery still there, A.J. Brown, Garder-Johnson, N'Keal Harry. But I think you look at that, and it's Christian Wilkins. Without a doubt, you gotta pick him with the 26th pick if he falls to you, which I don't think he will. But for this instance, he will. Jerry Tillery still here at 34th. I think that's something that you look at and you're like, wow, because in a lot of these mock drafts he went through. And 34th here, I went ahead and picked Nazir Adderley. I think the safety position, it could use some work here, and I'll go into that a little bit. But going into the 59th pick here, I did the same thing, looking at what was available. Julian Love, I kind of like the corner there from Notre Dame, but Paris Campbell, if he falls to you there at the second round pick, then I think you have to look at that. That he's a really great wide receiver for you there. for the pick. And the 89th pick here, I went a little different, looking at what was available here. You have your wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, and an inside O lineman. And you could scroll down and find, Jamal Dean. I like him, a corner from Auburn. I think he's pretty good. He's had some good games for them. But I went ahead and went with the Penn State running back here. This is a little weird one that I can kind of go either way on, as far as agreeing with this making sense. But when you look at Miles Sanders' numbers, from Penn State in the Big Ten, that's where it makes a little bit more sense, and I'll go into that here in just a few minutes. But finalizing my draft here and looking, it's Christian Wilkins, Adderley, Paris Campbell, and Miles Sanders there for you. So that was my 2 mock drafts today, and I'll go into that right now with the 26th pick, picking Christian Wilkins. I mean, he's a top 15 talent in the draft. That's just a no-brainer. I don't realistically think he's going to fall to there. In a lot of these mock drafts, he is falling, but realistically, probably not. But I had to pick him for this. I mean, he's an All-American, had 16 sacks last year. He's just a stud there on your defensive line. And he's, I think, just going to be a future NFL star no matter where he lands. So he's probably my favorite pick. If I could just pick anyone, that realistically, I would pick Christian Wilkins at 26 and I would have him fall. I really like him. And the 34th, Nazir Adderley. This one I don't like necessarily as much as your garder-johnson or your Jonathan Abram. I think he's probably my 3rd favorite one that's going to fall to the Colts. I like him a little bit better than your Taylor Rapp from Washington. He has experience from the corner and safety, so another versatile safety. He's not afraid to step up and make plays and be a supporter of the run. He's got a good frame, 6 foot, 206. He had a decent career there for Delaware. And I think that adding a versatile safety, is going to be important as the Colts look for their safety of the future. If Clayton Gathers, like I said before, is not going to be your guy of the future, if he's plagued with another injury season, then another higher draft of a safety here could come in and be something that you're looking at. And at the 59th pick, again, like I went into Paris Campbell. I already talked about him. So that's one I really like there at the 59th pick. I was talking a lot with the 34th pick of getting A.J. Brown a couple weeks ago, and I think I've kind of changed my mind. I like the 59th pick, Paris Campbell, if he falls to you there. And, you're still getting a great player there in the 2nd round with the first pick, the 34th, and then 59th. That's when you can get your wide receiver, if that's what Ballard wanting to do. And Miles Sanders, I mean, this guy, he's running back from Penn State. He learned under Saquon, obviously. He had 1,274 yards last season and 9 touchdowns. So really a high production back, but he only has 276 career carries. So I think, looking at that's pretty low mileage, as running back is a position that you got to look at how many hits they've taken in their career. And I think that this guy checks a lot of marks in that regards. No big injury indicators. I think, looking at his 40, a 4.49. So checks the box there too. He's a patient runner. I thought, he's not necessarily like your speed guy. I think that he finds space. He uses his blockers really well, and he also was a pretty reliable 3rd down option there with the run and pass as well too. So always wanting to add versatile guys is important. So I don't know about picking a running back there that early. You like your running back room right now, and obviously Marlon Mack is your starter moving forward, but you've got your Jordan Wilkins and Nyheim Hines coming back for their 2nd year after you drafted them last season. But I think that it's probably a good idea to draft a running back every year in the draft, somewhere in there. And if you wanted to pick, one a little higher this time, then that would make sense. And obviously, too, I think that looking at what was available there for me in that mock draft, that this one kind of made the most sense to me. So that's kind of why I picked it. But I wanted to make this one kind of short today. I didn't want to make it too overly long. I don't like to make them too long. And I wanted to give out my 2 final mock drafts here as we're a week away. I'm going to not necessarily sure Tuesday's content. I'm going to have one on Tuesday, and I will be sure to drop that one. And I, excited to react to the draft and see who the Colts get. Is it going to be one of these guys that I've been talking about, or is Ballard going to pull another rabbit out of his hat? With somebody that is maybe a little bit lesser known, or maybe out of the expected realm, if you will. And you look at that, and I think you would be happy with some of these players, and that's why I think that inevitably the Colts probably shouldn't trade back in the draft, or even have to trade up, because you saw the list today of who on this mock draft were available at 26. And I think those are some great players. You look at their tapes and you go do a little bit of research into these guys, and they're at 26. I like the guys that are available for you and available for the Colts. So I'm super excited. I'm excited for draft night. It's going to be a lot of fun, and leading into the draft next week is always going to be a good time. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to the season. Now we know the schedule. It's going to be, we don't necessarily know every team yet until after the draft, but we have an idea, of what the Colts are, and I think they have a realistic shot to go 11-5 and 12-4 this year. Just looking at it, they have some hard games. Kansas City is going to be a tough one. I think the Chargers is going to be tough. You're looking at the who do we got? The Saints at the Superdome. We have a lot of tough games on the road. It's the Chargers, Chiefs, Saints on the road, and Steelers on the road. I mean, those are going to be all tough games, but you look at the home schedule, and that's where you can be like, okay, these are winnable games, and the Colts have done relatively well at home here in the past. So I'm hoping that Colts fans bring it this year, that attendance rises up. Last season the attendance for the Colts home games weren't very good. And I think that more and more people are kind of believing in the Colts again, and getting excited about it. And I certainly am as well. So can't wait for that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast today and the insight into my final 2 mock drafts leading into the draft. We'll see how these look after the draft. And but I always like to do these. These are a whole lot of fun to do. If you like the podcast today, please hit the like button. Let me know who you guys maybe would have drafted in the comments. At 26, there was a questionable pick there with Gardner-Johnson at safety. You could have definitely went a whole lot of ways. So I expect there's to be some other options at 26 from other people. So let me know that as well, and hit the subscribe button. I come out with 2 podcasts a week, and I've been getting a lot of reception in the past couple ones. So I'm going to keep them going, and it's always fun to come out here and talk. So thank you guys for listening, and I will be back next week to lead into the draft.